What's up everyone, I'm CallumOnToast, and in today's video I'm going to be showcasing some battles in the Open Great League featuring a Pokemon that before this week was nearly impossible to obtain, but one that I had been desperately trying to get, and that is Hisuian Typhlosion. Now previously this Pokemon was only available in raids at level 20, and only had a handful of possible IV combinations that would fit into the Great League after trading with someone that you've never interacted with before. But now for the first time ever it's available in field research, so it's much easier to get. All you have to do is complete a field research task, you don't need to trade it at all, and this Pokemon is now much more relevant as well this season, with Hex getting buffed and of course Fire Punch getting buffed last season. To round out the team, we've got a double buffed Furret in the lead and a buffed Armarouge as the closer, with Hisuian Typhlosion in that safe swap position. With that being said, let's get into the question of the day. Are there any Pokemon that you think are maybe slightly too strong now after the move updates? Let me know in the comment section down below, and with that being said, let's get into the battles now. Alright, so go into the first battle, leading Furret into Serperior. Now I've got two fire types in the back, so eventually I will swap out of this matchup, but I'm actually going to stay in, fire off a Swift first before they can reach a Frenzy Plant, and then swap into my Typhlosion. The opponent is going to choose to stay in there. They swap into a Galarian Moltres, and this seems like a bad matchup, but we've got Wild Charge for coverage. We're going for a Fire Punch bait, grabbing a shield from the opponent committing to the farm down, but I'm able to reach the Wild Charge, and Wild Charge goes no shielded. It gets the one shot there. I'm able to flip switch advantage and grab a shield advantage as the opponent comes in with a Blastoise. Now we're going to come in with the Furret, and the opponent has actually farmed up a ton of energy, so this could be a Skull Bash. So I'm actually going to shield this. It is the Skull Bash, so that is very good for me. Now I'm going to fire off the Trailblaze. Trailblaze of course going to hit for super effective damage, boost up my attack there, and the opponent is going to fire off a Charge Move. This should now just be a Hydro Cannon. I should be able to tank this, and I'm going to go straight for a Swift. I'm boosted, so this Swift is going to do quite a lot of damage here. The opponent no shields. It's a CMP tie, and at this point I'm happy to let the Furret go down. Aerialace gets the KO. We can come in with the Armarouge, one Incinerate, gets the farm down, and the opponent just concedes the match. So, GG top on there, into next battle, see Furret into Ariados. So again, another Pokemon weak to fire, so I'm going to be safe swapping into my Typhlosion, and we're able to bait out a Greninja, and again, going straight for the Wild Charge this time around. Wild Charge gets the one shot, the opponent does not respect the damage, and now they come in with a Morpeko. Now, unfortunately, because I've debuffed my defense, a Psychic Fangs will actually get the KO here, but that's okay with me. We're now going to come in with the Armarouge, and I realize I can probably shield once, and especially if they throw on really poor timing like they've just done, I can go for a full Incinerate farm down. They go for the Aura Wheel there, which means they will reach another Charge Move, but it's just going to be a Psychic Fang. So, of course, Psychic Fangs is going to, of course, be resisted there. We can tank that very comfortably. We've got 100 energy. We go straight for Psyshock. Psyshock grabs a shield from the opponent. They do reach a Charge Move, but it doesn't really matter. We can just shield up the Cross Poison and go for another Psyshock, and we're already at back-to-back once again. So, Psyshock, number 2, grabs the final shield. We're already at Psyshock, number 3, and, of course, from this range, it gets the KO up against the Ariados, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's top on there, into next battle, we see a Wigglytuff in the lead. So again, a Pokemon that's gonna struggle against fire type. So we swap into our Typhlosion and we bait out a Lomomola. Now here, we've got back-to-back Wild Charges, but I actually waited for the Waterfall damage to register so that I can fire them both off. But actually, I go for a Fire Punch here, don't really know why. Doesn't really make a difference there as they do shield, but should have just gone for the Wild Charge and make sure, because if I went for Fire Punch there and they no shielded, they actually probably would have lived that. But either way, it doesn't really matter. I'm going to tank the Psychic, go for a full Sucker Punch farm down, coming out with a Trailblaze loaded. We're just going to go for Swift, as Swift does hit for stab damage, and I'm not intending to stay in. So we go for the Swift, we swap into our Armarouge, and the opponent's going to come in with an Altaria. Now, Altaria going to be very problematic for the Armarouge, but with the better pacing to Psyshock, it only takes 2 Incinerates every single time to reach a Psyshock here. So we might be able to reach 3 Psyshocks before they can Dragon Breath farm me down, and we're just barely able to do so. Psyshock, number 3, actually gets the KO up against the Altaria. We're going to come back in with the Furret, and I'm actually going to go for a Swift immediately, just to make sure I fire this off before they do reach an Icy Wind. Swift doesn't get the KO, but I'm able to just barely get the Sucker Punch farm down, taking out the Wigglytuff, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG sort of there into the next battle. We see a Galarian wheezing in the lead. So, of course, Sucker Punch is resisted. However, I swap into my Typhlosion and they're on Brutal Swing. So, they fire it off straight away. And then they swap into a Shadow Dusclops. Or, sorry, a Shadow Dust Noir on Astonish. So, we go for Fire Punch, grab a shield there. But unfortunately, they can go for a full Astonish farm down, coming out with a decent amount of energy as well. So, this is looking really tricky for us already. We are going to, of course, respect the damage from a Dynamic Punch. The opponent is going to full send it, but I'm going to need to make a catch here. So we are going to overfarm, swap, catch the Charge Brief here. I'm hoping this is a Dynamic Punch, and it is the Dynamic Punch. We're able to get the farm down there with the Incinerate, but they come in with a second Dusclops evolution there, and unfortunately, it's not looking too good. But we go for Psyshock, and because of that pacing buff, we can now reach a second Psyshock, probably grabbing a shield from the opponent, grabbing the final shield from the opponent, but then unfortunately, they're able to swap, get the farm down with the Wheezing, and that is a really nice play on the opponent's end. The opponent's going to go for a Brutal Swing there. That does not do much damage, so I'm hoping if the opponent goes for another Brutal Swing, I can actually just farm up to a Swift and a Trailblaze and take this game. But let's see, the opponent has now overfarmed just slightly, and they go for the Sludge, which means we can only farm up to back-to-back Swifts. Otherwise, they would just be able to farm me down. Swift, of course, gets the KO there. I couldn't remember how much HP the Dusclops had, but unfortunately, it's a lot healthier than I remembered. Swift, nowhere near doing enough damage to get the KO there. Of course, it is double resisted, and unfortunately, Ice Punch takes out the Furret, and we do end up losing that game. But GG so there into the next battle, another Serperior. So we are going to stay in once again, and we are actually going to swap out of this matchup before throwing the Swift this time around. The opponent comes in with a Kanto Shadow Marowak, so not ideal for us. We're only going to reach one Charge Brief. I do overfarm here because we could also be running something like Overheat, which would do a ton of damage in this matchup. But either way, we grab a shield advantage. We are one Sucker Punch away from a Trailblaze at this point, so the opponent fires off the Bone Club. We're going for the Trailblaze immediately. Trailblaze possibly won't quite get the KO from this range. It doesn't quite take them out there, but at this point, I can also live a Bone Club, so I'm going to no shield. Bone Club does big damage, but we get the Sucker Punch farm down. I'm going to swap instantly into my Armarouge. The opponent comes back in with Serperior, but then they come in with a Shadow Drapion, and this, not a great matchup for us, but we do have a shield advantage. Of course, I'm using it straight away, but now we're going to go straight for Flame Charge here. If the opponent shields this up, I might be able to go for a full Incinerate farm down here before the opponent reaches two more Aqua Tails. The opponent fires off the first Aqua Tail, but we can get the farm down. We come out with the Flame Charge loaded. We're already boosted. It's going to hit for super effective damage, and Armarouge takes out the Serperior, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG so far there into the next battle, we see Furret into Araquanid. So again, a Pokemon that fire types are going to do fairly well against. Of course, going to hit for neutral damage there, but we swap into Typhlosion, baiting out Mandibuzz, and we're going straight for Wild Charge. Wild Charge does huge damage, but unfortunately, because we're on Hex, I will not be able to farm them down here, so I'm not going to be able to flip this matchup, but they do full send a Dark Pulse, which is somewhat helpful for me. We're now going to go for the Fire Punch. Fire Punch is going to be shielded by the opponent, and that's probably the best I can get out of this matchup. So at this point, I'm happy to no shield, let the Typhlosion go down. We're going to come in with the Furret, and I did think about going for a full farm down here, but instead, you know what? We're just going to fire off a Swift on the CMP tie. Swift, of course, will be enough damage to get the KO there. I'm going to stay in this matchup here just because in case the opponent's on Bubble Beam, which it looks like they are, we don't really want to tank that onto our Armarouge, so instead, going to now swap out, clear the debuff. The opponent comes in with a Mudslap Gastrodon, and again, not really looking too ideal for us, but we can go for Psyshock. Psyshock grabs the first shield there. The opponent allows me to reach a second Psyshock, and again, we would not reach that Psyshock if we had the old Psyshock energy of 45, but now we're able to come out with the Trailblaze loaded. Of course, going to hit for double super effective damage. Easily gets the KO there. We boost up our attack. The opponent does reach another Bubble Beam, but it's okay. I'm going to no-shield this just because if the opponent grabs my shield there, they might just barely reach a Bug Buzz or something. So at this point, we're going to boost up the attack once again. Trailblaze, not going to do too much damage there, but I'm able to reach the Swift before they can farm me down. And of course, Swift, from this range, takes out the Araquanid, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG so far there into the next battle, we see Furret into a Claydol. So this is definitely a good matchup for us, but then the opponent swaps into a Shadow Credilli. Now, honestly, I don't have a good response to Credilli at all, so what I'm going to do is actually chip with a Swift here. I'm going to tank the Charge Move, most likely, yeah. I'm going to tank it and then swap out of this matchup into one of my other Pokemon. So we're going to come in with the Armarouge. I realize I can shield once, and I should still be able to go for a full Incinerate farm down. They go for the Rock Tomb, debuffing my attack there, which not ideal, but we still get that Incinerate farm down, and now we can go for a Flame Charge. Of course, we've got 100 energy here, going for the Flame Charge. Flame Charge doesn't do too much damage there, but now I'm going to go for a Side Shock, expecting to grab a shield here. Side Shock is going to be shielded by the opponent, and then I make a bit of a mistake there. Should have just gone for another Flame Charge, actually, because Side Shock is resisted damage, and I just didn't realize I was going to get there because of the difference in the energy of Side Shock. It means that actually, since I did go for a Side Shock, I could then reach another Flame Charge. But anyways, we're now going to fire off a Swift. We come in with the Typhlosion, and I don't expect the opponent to shield their Wigglytuff. So what we're going to do is farm up 2 back-to-back Wild Charges, fire off the first Wild Charge. Wild Charge is unfortunately shielded by the opponent. I did not expect that. And now I'm going to shield this. They go for an Icy Wind. Icy Wind, of course, going to debuff my attack. I'm going to overfarm as much as possible, but unfortunately, Wild Charge will not be enough damage to get the KO there. The opponent can just swap back into the Claydol. Of course, fire off a Charge Leaf. Rock Tomb gets the KO there, and unfortunately, we do lose that game. But GG's up there into the next battle, see a Charge Bug in the lead. So once again, a matchup where we've got 2 fire types in the back. So I'm going to swap. I tried to catch the X-Scissor onto my Typhlosion. Doesn't work out, but we baked out a Blastoise, and I'm going straight for Wild Charge once again. Wild Charge, do they respect it? No, it gets the one shot. We take out the Blastoise, and we're just 1 hex away from a Fire Punch. So if the opponent does not throw straight away, I can reach a Fire Punch here. Fire Punch probably going to be shielded at this point. It is shielded by the opponent, and then they just throw straight away. At this point, of course, happy to let the Typhlosion go down. Going to come in with the Armarouge. Do have quite a lot of energy, and of course, X is going to hit for neutral damage up against the Armarouge, so I'm actually going to shield this and then go straight for a Side Shock. If they shield this, I might then swap into my Ferret to catch the Charge Beam, just because Ferret is, of course, a lot bulkier, and you can see, unfortunately, I actually go for a Swift here. We end up throwing on the CMP tie, losing CMP apparently, so I actually don't know the stat product of Ferret. I don't know if that is IV dependent maybe, but either way, they come in with the Lapras. I'm just going to force them to throw their energy straight away. At this point, happy to let Sparking Aria take us out. Of course, we are going to resist the Psywave damage, and I can make it to back-to-back Psy Shock. So, going for the first Psy Shock number 1 is actually going to put them into range where 1 Incinerate takes them out anyways, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up on there, into the next battle, see Pangoro in the lead. So this is a huge core breaker to the team, and a Pokemon that, honestly, I just didn't really think about at all. But either way, we're going to come in with the Typhlosion. Gonna no-shield. That Night Slash does more damage than I was expecting. And then at this point, I'm thinking they can probably Karate Chop farm me down anyway. So I go for the Wild Charge just to make sure that they farm me down a little bit faster. But honestly, they still got a ton of energy. I think they've got like 5 Karate Chops worth of energy already. So this is really not looking good for me. Again, I'm going to no-shield. Armarouge, slightly bulkier than the Typhlosion, but we do take more damage from these Karate Chops as they're single resisted rather than double resisted. So either way, we're really not in a good position. We fire off the Psy Shock. Psy Shock does actually get the KO from that range. They come in with a Grumpig. We're going to swap back into our Ferret. And of course, we're going to go and fire off a Swift. We're close to back-to-back charge views here. The Swift is going to be no-shielded by the opponent. I'm definitely going to have to respect the damage from a Dynamic Punch here. And the opponent then swaps into their final Pokemon, a Clodsire. Now, I hadn't seen this team already, but this is actually a team that Yonka showcased on his YouTube channel. So I definitely recommend, even if you don't really intend on using any of the teams that Yonka showcases, definitely watch his videos anyway, because he has a huge influence on the meta. At this point, it's looking like it's game over, but they actually bait with a Sludge Bomb. So I'm going to try and swap, catch the next charge move, but the opponent, in committing to the farm down, allows me to reach a Psy Shock. Psy Shock gets the KO there. They get the Psywave farm down, but I'm able to get a Sucker Punch farm down. I'm sure they should have reached a charge move there. Don't really know what happened, but I'm not going to complain. GG's to the opponent there into the next battle. We see a Credilli in the lead. So again, not really ideal for me. I'm just going to stay in here. They fire off the charge move straight away. The opponent goes for the Rock Tomb there. I'm now going to go for a Trailblaze, boosting up my attack once again. So we're back to the regular attack stat of the Ferret, and I can reach a Swift as well. Now, of course, Swift is resisted. Doesn't really matter too much. I should be able to put them into range, or I can just farm them down with possibly either Pokemon. I think Armarouge is the safer bet, just because Incinerate's going to do more damage here, and the opponent is going to allow me to get that farm down, but they come in with a Shadow Claw Golisopod. So going straight for Psy Shock. Unfortunately, because they are probably going to be running Aqua Jet, they are able to outpace me to the next charge move by 1 turn. Aqua Jet would have got the KO there. Definitely need to respect the damage. We're now going to go for another Side Shock, and then I will swap out into my Typhlosion, as they will be able to outpace me to the next charge move, and I also don't want to get too low on my Armourouge. So we come in, we shoot up the Aqua Jet. I'm going to go straight for the Fire Punch here. Fire Punch will be enough damage from this range to get the KO. And then what have they got in the back? They've got a Shadow Galarian Weezing, so I'm hoping a Wild Charge will be enough damage to get the KO here, but it doesn't. And the opponent overfarms perfectly. I believe they are 1 away from back-to-back Brutal Swings, which means, unfortunately, they're able to outpace me to the charge move before we get the Incinerate farm down. Brutal Swing gets the KO there, and unfortunately we do lose that game. But brilliant end game there by that opponent. Into the next battle, we see Azumarill in the lead. So the opponent's going to say swap into a Shadow Drapion. I'm just going to stay in with the Ferret, go for a Swift here, do some chip damage, and then eventually I will be swapping out of this matchup. But this point, I'm going to no-shield this. The opponent goes for the crunch there. I'm going to go for the Swift, but unfortunately, we lose CMP with the Ferret. So at this point, definitely going to shield up the Aqua Tail, go for a Swift, expecting to grab a shield back from the opponent. And then what I'm actually going to do here, which is kind of strange, I swap into my Typhlosion with the intentions being that I'm hoping the opponent will eventually swap back into their Azumarill. And of course, we've got Wild Charge for coverage, but the opponent is choosing to stay in here, which is definitely not ideal for me. But they do eventually swap out into the Azumarill, and at this point I'm going to farm up 2 back-to-back Wild Charges. Unfortunately though, I am going to debuff my defense, so even though the opponent is at an Ice Beam resisted damage with that debuff, still gets the KO there. But now we can come in with the Armourouge, and of course the opponent will be firing off a charge move pretty much straight away, but that's okay with me. I'm going to resist this. I haven't debuffed my defense here on the Armourouge, so we tank that pretty comfortably. I'm going to bank all of the energy. We've got back-to-back Side Shocks. We come in with the Ferret, we get the farm down, and they've got a Corsola in the back, so we're going straight for Trailblaze. Trailblaze, of course, not going to hit super hard, but it buffs up the attack there. These Sucker Punches doing big damage. The opponent then swaps out, catches the charge move onto their Drapion, but we got 1 more Sucker Punch. Hopefully that's put them into Side Shock range. We're going straight for Side Shock here. It's a CMP tie, and it does just barely get the KO up against the Corsola, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up in there, into next battle, another Credilli. So once again, a little bit tricky for me, just going to stay in this matchup initially, and if the opponent overfarms here, then I will be able to go for a Trailblaze before they debuff my attack. I mean, it doesn't really matter too much, but Trailblaze definitely does some nice damage there, since we haven't been debuffed yet. The opponent now going to debuff me with the Rock Tomb, but that's absolutely okay. I'm now going to fire off a Swift on the CMP tie here, and Swift coming through is going to be no-shielded by the opponent, but again, we put them into farm down range, so that's okay. Rock Tomb, not going to get the KO, so actually swap into our Typhlosion, but they come in with a Shadow Golurk. Definitely not ideal for me. I'm going to go straight for Fire Punch. Fire Punch grabs a shield there, but they can go for a Mud Slap farm down. Now that's what I'm thinking. I'm not really sure if 2 Incinerates will get the KO. So we come in, we got 1 Sucker Punch just to guarantee that we can get the farm down. But unfortunately, they will reach back-to-back Shadow Punches. So the opponent fires off the first one. They go for 1 extra Mud Slap, and they can still fire off a second Shadow Punch. But we get the farm down there, and they've got a Fortress in the back. They try to catch the charge move, and that's going to be game over, as we've got back-to-back Flame Charges. Of course, Flame Charge going to hit for double super effective damage. Easily gets the 1 shot there, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up on there. Into next battle, we see a Shadow Kanto Marowak in the lead. So, going to stay in this matchup. We definitely need to see it here. Of course, we've got Trailblaze for coverage, but honestly, these neutral Mud Slaps and Bow Clubs are really going to chunk. I'm going to no-shield the first charge move. The opponent then swaps into a Grumpig. So, we're going to come in with the Typhlosion. I'm going to shield this. I'm then going to farm up 2 back-to-back Fire Punches before throwing my own charge move here. So, we're going to farm up 2 back-to-back charge moves, go for the Fire Punch. Fire Punch will be enough damage to very easily take out the Shadow Grumpig. If they come back in with the Marowak, we're going to go for another Fire Punch straight away. And the opponent does come in with that Marowak. So you go for Fire Punch. Fire Punch is going to be no-shielded. It does big damage. And they should still be 1 away from another charge move. So we go for the Sucker Punch. We then fire off the Swift. Swift is going to get the KO there. They come in with their final Pokemon, a Toxapex. Now, unfortunately, we are down a shield. This wouldn't be that bad of a matchup if it was an even shield scenarios, but unfortunately that is not the case. So we go for Side Shock. Side Shock gonna grab a shield from the opponent, but they have not thrown a charge move yet, and that is absolutely huge for me, because it doesn't matter at what point they throw now, I'm going to get the energy for that Incinerate to throw another Psyshock. So we can go for it straight away into this Toxapex. Psyshock does big damage. It puts them into range where hopefully I will be able to take them out with a Swift. They go for Brine, they get the KO there, but we've got the Charge Move already loaded on the Ferret. Swift actually doesn't get the KO, but I'm able to Sucker Punch, farm down the Toxapex, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's over there. Into the next battle, we see another Shadow Kanto Marowak. So, of course, same thing here. We're going to stay in with the Ferret, and we are going to possibly no-shield the first Charge Move here. No, we actually shield it this time around, but then they swap into a Galarian Moltres, and honestly, we do not have an answer at all. So we're going to stay in, fire off the Swift here. I'm hoping to grab a shield at some point. So we fire off a second Swift straight away. Swift number 2, unfortunately, is no shielded, and they do overfarm as well. So I'm hoping I can shield this, swap into my Armarouge, and go for the Incinerate. Farm down here before they reach another Charge Move, but that is not the case. They reach a last second Ancient Power. We have no shields. Ancient Power does not get the KO though, so I can fire off a Psyshock into the Marowak, coming back in. Psyshock grabs the shield from the opponent. But at this point, it's still looking very tricky for us. What I need to happen is for the opponent to no-shield a Trailblaze. If we go for the Trailblaze here and they shield, it's going to be game over. And unfortunately, that is the case. They can just monster farm me down. And there's just nothing Typhlosion can do here. Of course, all shields are down. The opponent, Bone Club, gets the one-shot up against Typhlosion. And unfortunately, we do lose that game. But GG so far there. Into the next battle, we see a Shadow Skuntank in the lead. So I'm going to say swap into my Typhlosion just because I realized I would actually resist the Poison Jab damage, and we're able to bait out a Galissapod. We're going straight for Wild Charge. Wild Charge is unfortunately shielded by the opponent, but even debuffing my defense, I'm able to just barely reach a second Wild Charge. Wild Charge number 2 grabs the final shield already, and at this point, that's pretty good for me, but they've got a lot of energy. So at this point, we're going to come in with the Ferret. I'm just going to no-shield the first Charge Move. The opponent is going to go and fire off a Liquidation. Liquidation is going to drop my defense, which is definitely not ideal, but I'm still thinking I should be able to live this. I barely hang on. We resist the Shadow Claw damage, so I can now go straight for Swift. Swift is going to put them into 1 Incinerate farm down range for the Armarouge. And let's see, the opponent's going to come in with their Shadow Skuntank. I'm not going to throw straight away just because I wasn't sure if a Flame Charge would quite get the KO from that range. So instead, we're now going to shield. Flame Charge should be taking them out here, but it just depends what they've got in the back. Flame Charge does get the KO, and they've got a Corviknight in the back, and now things are looking pretty good. We're already boosted. Flame Charge does huge damage. They've got super effective stand attacks, but it's not enough damage. Incinerate gets the KO there, and I'm able to take that game. Now going into the final battle of this video, we lead into a Claydol, so this is definitely where we want to see it. The opponent's going to swap into their own Ferret, so we are slightly ahead on energy, so I'm going to fire off the Swift immediately. Swift is going to be no-shielded by the opponent, but honestly, I can't let my Ferret get too low, so I'm actually going to shield this Charge Move. I'm then going to fire off another Swift. If I'm able to grab a shield here, I will swap into my Typhlosion. So Swift is going to be no-shielded. They barely hang on, so now we're going to swap into Typhlosion. I will resist the Charge Boost, which is quite nice. Swift, of course, double resisted, and we get that Hex farm down. Now they're probably going to come back in with the Claydol. I'm going to overfarm here. Again, unfortunately not able to reach back-to-back Charge Boosts, but the opponent doesn't know what Charge Boost I'm on, so I'm able to grab a shield there with the Fire Punch. Of course, I'm going to come back in with the Fire. I'm going to wait out my Switch Clock here, and I kind of need to no-shield this. I can't afford to shield my Ferret because Armarouge going to be pretty useless with all shields down. The opponent comes in with a Pangoro, and it's not looking too good for me. All the opponent needs to do here is fire off back-to-back Night Slashes, and it's game over, but I am going to go for that Flame Charge immediately. Flame Charge is no-shielded by the opponent. They come back in with the Claydol, but I'm able to reach another Flame Charge. Flame Charge now has to grab that final shield, but they commit to the farm down, and I've put them into range where a Swift from Ferret should be enough damage to get the KO. We had the move banked. Swift does take out the Claydol, and I'm able to take that game. So that's going to be it for today's video. If you did enjoy it, please make sure you leave a like, leave a comment letting me know, and as well, don't forget to respond to the question of the day if you haven't done so already. And if you want to see more content like this in the future, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on post notifications. That way you'll be notified whenever I upload a new video. And if you want to take your support even further, you can now become a channel member with perks including early access to new videos, shoutouts at the end of each video, custom loyalty badges, and custom emojis to use in the comments. I want to say a massive thank you to everyone that has already become a channel member. Your support is greatly appreciated, and with that being said, thank you all so much for watching today's video, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.